Welcome to Two Doctors Homestead. My name's Daniel. I want to share a book with you I just read. Really enjoyed it. It's a pipe hitter's guide to crushing the coming societal breakdown. Nicholas Orr, published in 2020, so I'm getting a little reflection on that. Great book. Really enjoyed it for a lot of reasons. There are 7 in the series, and I will be buying all 7 and reading through them. I mean, it's a good book, I think, on the Kindle, though there is some good information you might want to have. So that's an advantage for hardback. I'm not sure if paperback, hardback is available on these, but they are excellent books. And I don't want to steal too much from the book. Just read through it, share it with you, talk about what it covers, maybe get you interested in the book, get your mind going. So there's, of course, introduction. First chapter is understanding the threat to the food supply, and I think that's really important, and the book covers it really well. You got a section on the food supply in general, just explaining the food supply. You got what they call rock and stone world, crushing food prep, and he breaks it up into tiers, and we do the prepper pantry series. We got tier 1 through 4 is the way he has it listed out. We usually call it short-term, long-term, mid-term, but he's got canned food, bulk food, specialty food, MREs, and then of course tier 4 is grow your own food. And I wanted to read from the Rock and Stone World. It says, I'm reminded of the recent communist insurrection within the city limits of Seattle. The Mongoloids in Seattle started running out of food almost immediately. They resorted to begging and then stealing food within days. Their childish efforts to grow food overnight by sticking vegetable plants in the grass of a city park were laughable, if not so ridiculously stupid. There was only a small scale, but it was a good example of the completely out of touch behavior of spoiled urban parasites. And that's the writing style, and maybe that's what I enjoyed so much about the book. Beyond having a lot of great information, being a great read, you gotta like the writing style. But I mean, when we talk about food supply, he brings out a good point, right? That people, general modern society is very accustomed to having access to anything you want to eat 24/7. And what if that breaks down? And he, I believe, was in Katrina based on what he said in the book, and it's a great example of societal breakdown. Society broke down during Hurricane Katrina, and people weren't able to just run down to the grocery store to get food. And I think that's really what he covers in the food supply chapter, and a lot of great information about the types of food and how you want to store your food. Next chapter is Time for Guns, Possibility of Societal Breakdown. Once again, Katrina is a great example. And he gets into different kinds of guns. He talks about fighting rifle, fighting pistol, fighting shotguns, different types of guns you might have and why. So a lot of good information there. Has a section on team tactics, talks about gun handling, universal firearm safety rules, which are very important. Certainly should know probably before you even look at a gun, certainly touch a gun, universal firearm safety rules. Gets into mechanics and marksmanship, talks about things like range drills, straight line, back to back, and the stack. Gets into different field exercises, talks about patrolling strategies, formations that you might patrol in, diamond, staggered column, straight column, contact drills depending on the formation, and then gives some realistic scenarios where all of that might come into play. Certainly things like civil unrest, societal collapse, right, is always a possibility. So a lot of good information there on that. There's a chapter on blowout kits and trauma medicine. I thought there was great information there. Lists out the big 3 life-threatening injuries, which would be major hemorrhage, loss of airway, tension, pneumothorax, but also gives the description of contents of a blowout kit, traumatic medical gear. So a lot of good information in terms of the type of medical gear, type of training you might want to have, and has some good comments on sterility and infections. So good chapter. Talks about tribes, right? Best people, worst people, negotiating with predators, and it might not be the kind of negotiation you'd imagine, but it does talk about the need for tribe, need for groups. You know, it's not easy to survive alone. You really want to come together with a group, whether it's your neighborhood, and survive together, right? You need a team, you need numbers sometimes. There's a chapter on fortifications and fire bases, which was great. I felt like I learned a lot reading that. Fortifying your neighborhood, using vehicles as barriers, things like road spikes, caltrops, all that stuff, types of signs, barriers. And then there's a section on fire bases, which was fun. There's two other stories at the end. You've got the Dutch lifeboat. Great story, but I think it really opens up your eyes. It's sort of a Noah type story in terms of why you'd want to prepare and what to expect when you're preparing and others aren't. And that's certainly something we talk about on this channel. One thing about prepping, or what we're doing here, sharing the good word of prepping, is if something does happen, anyone that's not prepared is going to try to get on your lifeboat, and that's sort of the Dutch lifeboat story, right? And your lifeboat could get overwhelmed. So prepping, building that prepping community, but also encouraging others to prep so not everyone's trying to pile on your lifeboat. And then at the end, swallowing the red pill, right? So swallowing the red pill comes from the Matrix movies. The idea of the red pill awakens you, and you start looking at what's going on in the world right now. In a lot of ways, it's pretty scary, right? And this was written in 2020, sort of at the start, right? I didn't look if it was pre or post-pandemic, but written in 2020, and a lot of things were changing in 2020, right? So there's a lot of reason to be concerned about civil unrest, societal breakdown, especially around that time, which I think is around when we had the George Floyd stuff happened. A lot of stuff going on. So try not to get too much into any detail on that. But once again, great book. I think well worth reading. I enjoyed it. I downloaded it just for fun, and probably based on the title, but it was really well written, right? So I'm going to read the rest of the 6 books. There's total 7 books in the series. I may come back and share some information from them, but once again, highly recommend the book. And of course, prepping in general. We do a lot of homesteading and prepping here, and it's always nice when you get into any of the prepping books and always saying, hey, you might want to start growing your own food, right? That's what we're trying to do here, right? I know gardening's not exciting, but we just got our sunflower seeds, and that's exciting. We're excited about the sunflower seeds. So I hope that helps out, guys, right? As always, thank you for watching, and we appreciate you.